freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gaiman, and this is your mega preview pod for this week's American Express. And I have assembled quite the team to help me break it all down. Joining me, Mark Immelman is here. Mark, good to see you. How are you?
Hey, Rick, I still laugh every time I hear that intro. Enjoy his commentary on the freaking First Cut. No, it's good to be with you guys. I hope you're all well.
Not only that, but the beat gets me excited, puts a smile on my face every single time. Jonathan Coachman, the coach, is here joining us. Hey, Coach.
Hey, what's going on? I channeled my inner Kyle and Mark this week because when I did my picks today, I got all kinds of craziness on my board, so I'm ready to go.
And the infamous Kyle Porter is here. KP, I glanced at your betting card. I had to scroll. Very, very long, my friends. Welcome to the show.
Just wait till we add Corn Ferry events in. It's going to be just preposterous. What am I infamous for? What is my infamy? Just takes? Take infamy?
Yeah, takes and Twitter. You're very good on Twitter. Okay, I saw this. Kyle, how much would you sell your Twitter account for?
Oh, that's interesting. Do you have an answer?
No, it's. I mean, everybody's answer is different, right? I mean, you have I like your Twitter account. You have a lot of followers. You know, what would you sell it for?
Yeah. Are you making an offer? Is this a
I
negotiation?
I can't afford it. No, I just thought it was. I saw people talking about that online. I thought it was an interesting conversation.
I don't. Yeah, that's a fascinating conversation. I've never even thought about that. I don't know.
Episode. This might have to be a different episode.
Come back to me at the end, and what about however much I win in one and done this week?
There you go.
Hey, Rick, the Twitter account, whenever I go to Kyle's Twitter page, I'm like, what's he going to tweet next? It's kind of like when Phil Mickelson was playing, what's Phil going to do next? It's the same. What's the next KP tweet that's on deck? Because
I'm the Phil Mickelson of
Phil
Mickelson of social media.
I'm embarrassed. Twitter. I'm embarrassed to say I don't think I follow you, Kyle. What's Kyle's handle? Real quick.
At Kyle Porter CBS. I say it at the end of every single show. I
don't listen to you. I don't listen to you.
Mark _ Immelman at the coach.
I'm even more embarrassed because Kyle does follow me. Done.
Hate to see it.
Done. It's nothing personal. Now I'm followed, so now I'm good.
There you go, Kyle. Got another follower. Gentlemen, we have some breaking news at the top. In fact, Kyle and I just got off of HQ talking about this. Tiger Woods releases a statement that he underwent a fifth back surgery. It was I'm certainly no doctor, a pressurized disc that was causing a pinched nerve is the way that I understand it. And Mark, he's going to miss the Farmers Insurance Open. He's going to miss the Genesis Invitational, but he did not go any further than that. Obviously, we know there's a big tournament in April lurking, but your initial reaction to the Tiger Woods news today?
You know what? To be honest with you, Rick, I really was somewhat shocked, but then in the same breath, I was like not really surprised because because apparently the nerve pain he was struggling was at the PNC, that father-son event, and he didn't look like he was moving that freely. But I thought, this is just Tiger Woods. Every week we talk about Tiger on this show and every other show. It's like, well, Tiger's scheduling is basically the main order of the day, and I was like, well, maybe he's just a little tender and tight, but having to go in there and have another surgery, he's fifth. That doesn't bode well. There's, as far as I believe, the more times you get your body cut on, the more you kind of essentially compromise. So, yeah, I would expect him to take the West Coast off because those events are typically more damp and they're a little more cold and they're kind of more wintry. But then when you get to the Florida swing, if you get a cold day, it's kind of frigid in the morning, but then it's going to warm up. And so there'll be a lot more free swinging, not bundled up in clothing. So it's obviously smart. He's doing the right thing. He knows what he's doing, but it doesn't surprise me at all that we won't see him on the West Coast swing, given just the different conditions.
I've certainly learned over the years that I'm never going to doubt Tiger. What he did off of one back surgery was incredible, then two, then three, then four. Hopefully we say the same thing after 5. KP, you and I were on HQ kind of doing a little bit of breaking news on this. And the one thing that stuck out to me is, of course, the statement that we get. Tiger expects to make a full recovery, which is great. That's awesome. But what is a full recovery? He's 45 years old. He's had 5 back surgeries. He opted to skip the Players Championship last year. I mean, what is a full recovery?
Yeah, I really like the way Mark said that. He said it's back surgery is shocking, but it's also not surprising. I think that's the right way to kind of frame it. I pulled up, man, I vividly remember I was at the PGA at Bethpage, and I was on the bus back to the hotel. I was sitting with Sean Martin, PGAtour.com, and he handed me this article that he was reading on the New York Times about Tiger, and in the article they were talking about back surgeries and specifically the surgery, the spinal fusion that Tiger had in 2017, kind of the big daddy, the big one. And here's the quote from the article. It said, they interviewed this associate professor of medicine at Harvard, and he said, his name's Dr. Atlas. He said, Dr. Atlas said he tells patients that it's one thing for an athlete like Woods to have that operation, the spinal fusion. It may be risky, but he also might get a few more years out of his playing career, which could be worth millions of dollars for a green jacket. He didn't throw in the green jacket. That part. But he cautions typical middle-aged patients, once they have that fusion, it can't be undone. And it is likely that they will have future surgery down the road as a consequence of the instability fusion causes. If your goal is cure, that isn't what this is going to offer. And I've thought about that article a lot over the last couple of years. And I think that I don't know what, I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know what like success in the future is for Tiger. He wasn't that good last year in 2020, and he was seemingly as healthy as he is, at least for the last part of the year. So, while I think this surgery is minor compared to the spinal fusion in 2017, it just where does the deterioration end? How many more surgeries are there? I don't know. I don't have a lot of optimism right now for where Tiger's at.
I think that's an interesting point, KP. The end of 2020 for him, and Coach, I want to bring you in on this because, there was an appearance of health for Tiger at probably the last 6 months of 2020. We were worried about the cold, frigid mornings at TPC Harding Park, and he makes it out of there unscathed, doesn't mention his back or any other body part throughout the entire week. And seemingly he was fairly healthy. And to Kyle's point, the performance on the course wasn't all that great. Now we add in another back surgery, and it's just, you try to look forward for Tiger, and what do you see?
Two words came to my mind when I saw this story today, and it was makes sense. I was very critical, as many of us were, in 2020 with the lack of play from Tiger, especially coming out of the pandemic, because it would have just made sense. So we had almost 3 months off. Why wouldn't he come back and play? But now that he has set the schedule the way that he did, and I don't think even Tiger, if you're going to put a lie detector on him, if you said, Tiger, the way you laid out your schedule, do you truly believe that you will be successful in these big tournaments that you're not preparing for? I think even Tiger would tell you no, but I think that going back to the summer, this had to be bothering him. I had a lot of back issues back when I was in college and I played basketball, and it would come and go, and I didn't even have the serious injuries that he has had. So I refuse to believe that this started in December. I refuse to believe that he wasn't having these issues back in the summer, which is why he didn't play anything but the really big events that if he would have skipped, it really would have been a red flag. So for me, this makes sense, and I'm with Kyle. I love Tiger more than anything. This does not bode well because all we care about is Tiger going to win or is Tiger going to lose? We don't care about fifth place finishes anymore. And that is where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I don't think Tiger cares about fifth place finishes either. It's victory or bust. Gentlemen, we are going to talk a lot about Tiger Woods over the coming days and weeks and months and years, hopefully. But now we're going to transition over to the American Express because we've got PGA Tour action this week. We got action all over the world, by the way. We got the ladies back in action. We got a European Tour event. But let's start with the American Express and go through a couple of storylines. And Mark, I want to start with mine, which is Ricky Fowler, right? The big question mark coming into 2021 for Fowler, and we know that the year 2020 was defined by swing changes, the process. It was defined by him dropping out of the top 50 in the world. Now wondering if we're going to see him play at Augusta National in April, and we are returning to the place where he had his last top 10. Let that sink in, Mark. A top 10 a year ago. I mean, it's almost unfathomable. So now we say, okay, is this the year Ricky Fowler puts all those swing changes into play and things get better, or are we headed in the same direction?
Yeah, you know what? When I saw your text message and you were talking about it, I just took a minute to just think about, Ricky Fowler and the recent travails, and then my mind starts wandering as it ordinarily does, and then Jordan Spieth pops to mind, and then Tiger Woods. In fact, when the Woods wire news came across the wire, and a few of my colleagues reached out to me, and they're like, "Oh goodness," and it just speaks of the ever evolving landscape, and along the Fowler lines. I mean, my storyline for this week is. Obviously, last season was defined by COVID-19, and I will forever remember what the comeback being part of that crew at Colonial, but just the event being the players being cancelled on Friday morning, and Jay Monahan in the press conference over there, and then how COVID just became the story everywhere. And this year, obviously, it's continuing because of the pandemic. But now you look at, I know a lot of these West Coast events. These are they date back to way back in the day, and you have names like Jack Nicholson and Bing Crosby and Jack Lemmon and all these legends that used to play in all of these events at Pebble Beach and down the road here in La Quinta, and it's honestly the first time I went and called this event. I went in the pro shop and I found a long sleeve T-shirt, which incidentally I love if anyone's giving away, and it had the Bob Hope logo on the arm. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever because the Bob Hope Charity Classic was something I watched on TV. And it was played over these multiple courses, and you got the pros and the amateurs, and it was a return to the mainland, and just the desert. Palm Springs is such a great place for golf. And when you're coming out of the winter on the East Coast and in the middle portions of America and North America, to go to Southern Cal in the desert there, it feels like you're in paradise. And all of a sudden, this event has been changed drastically. No amateurs.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be 5 rounds. They cut that to 4 a few years ago. Now it's 4 rounds with a 36-hole cut. Ordinarily, it used to be 54-hole cuts because you went and played 3 courses before you came back to the host venue. So it's a 36-hole cut. The field's typically huge. Everyone comes there and plays in great conditions. But now you've got 2 courses, no amateurs. And it's sort of emblematic of what's going on because just a few weeks down the track, Pebble Beach is the same deal. No amateurs there. And that is just eye-popping for me because you think of that thing. I mean, all the legends, all of the movie stars and all those sorts of guys that have played in these events. So it's wildly different, but it's still a great event. I'm glad that American Express hopped on board last season and are still involved because this event, which deserves its place on the calendar, and this event, which has held a spot on the West Coast swing since Moby Dick was a minnow, I would hate to see it go away, really. And so I'm glad American Express is there. I'm glad we got a field. It's kind of sad that there are no amateurs, but I'm sure the pros will love it. And I'm sure we're in for a super week as a result.
I do like the changes. I'm glad you brought those up, Mark. And actually, producer Jacob and I were kind of just chatting before we went hot about how those changes might impact the field this week, Coach. And we are aware that we've had some long shot winners here recently. Adam Long wins it at 500 to 1, and Andrew Landry wins it at 200 to 1. And one of the ideas behind long shots is there's a lot of volatility in the fact that we're playing 3 courses and there's a lot going on and it's really low scores. Now we get back to 2 courses. La Quinta's out of the rotation. That was the easiest course. You can imagine a few more difficult pin positions now that the amateurs aren't out there, and thinking that maybe it is not a necessarily a long shots haven this week, and it might be one of the bigger names that ends up winning this event.
I think we can combine the 2 topics that both of you guys were just talking about going into what you want me to address. I think it completely changes because when I watch a 54-hole cut, I feel like there's no pressure on Thursday and Friday, and players play differently. So you're going to see a guy that maybe you wouldn't see come through with a 65-65 on Thursday and Friday, because to me, the cut day, even people play differently just trying to make the cut. And so now this tournament, when you look at some of the young guys that they've let in, the John Augustines of the world making his pro debut, got some other young guys as well. I think there's a great mix, but you also have the big name guys that decided whoever didn't go to the Century, like Brooks. You got Tony Finau playing this week. You got Patrick Reed back this week. So I think a lot of the big names said, I'm going to skip Century, and this is going to be the spot. I think the reason that more of the big names are here, 13 out of the top 50, is because of the changes that they've made. Because I remember going to Pebble for PGA Tour Live last year or the year before, and I remember talking to a lot of pros. they hate the Pro-Ams. I always wondered why John Rahm didn't go to play Pebble Beach. He doesn't like playing in Pro-Ams. He just doesn't. And a lot of other guys.
You mean he doesn't like those like 7.5-hour rounds around Pebble and all that?
No. I remember asking people, how come some of these pros don't come and play here? This is Pebble Beach. They're like, they just don't like the format. They just don't. And you've got to be very engaging for a long time. You got to talk to your partner for a long time. So I think you're going to see a different kind of champion this week, different than the kind of game that Andrew Landry has. By the way, 2 of the last 3 years, he's been right at the top.
He certainly has. It's an interesting setup. KP, I want to put a bow on Ricky Fowler before we move on here to Brooks Koepka conversation, because even that top 10 last year, that T10 last year was a bit disappointing. He was the 36-hole leader. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. Ricky's going to run away with this thing. And he kind of fades on the weekend to that T10. So even his last top 10, which is arbitrary, I get it. We're choosing top 10, but like was a bit disappointing. And now we look for, we can pile him in with Brooks, which is your storyline for this week. These guys enter 2021 with a lot of questions, and I'm not sure how many answers.
Tiger's had a top 10 more recently than Ricky, by the way.
Torrey, right?
Yeah, the week after, or 2, whatever it was. Let's talk about Ricky and Brooks separately, because I think that the Ricky conversation for me, it's definitely about him and about the swing changes and all these different things, but it's also about like what's transpired since we would have considered him like a top 5 or top 10 guy. And that's that you see guys like Sung Jae, Scotty Scheffler, obviously the triumvirate of Morikawa, Hovland, and Wolff, like all these guys that are just better than him now. And so all of a sudden he's in a position of like, what are you? Are you the 50th best player in the world? Are you a top 15 guy still? And so I think that part, he's got a, like, it sounds weird for somebody that's won 5 times, but it feels like he has a lot to prove this year. And that's sort of the same conversation I have about Brooks. Like, what are you? Are you just, was it a Jason Day thing where you just got hot for like 36 months and now you're going to fall to 40th in the world? Are you like, he because the weird thing is like, he still talks like he's a top 5 guy. And it's like, dude, you're not a top 5 guy. Like, you're not even a top 20 guy or 30. I mean, and so I just, and even look at the end of last year, he gets T7 or T5 at Houston, T7 at the Masters. And then you just miss the cut at Mayakoba. I mean, that's sort of in his like ethos, I guess, of how he views the tour or whatever. But I don't know. It sounds weird to have questions about a guy that's won 4 major championships, but I just don't know. I don't know what his long-term trajectory actually is.
It is really interesting. And Mark, it makes me wonder from a player's perspective, because I like what Kyle said. He said, for Ricky Fowler, it's kind of about him. Ricky's been healthy. Ricky's been playing a lot. The results just haven't been there. For Brooks, you could just say, yeah, you know what? He's been dealing with injuries and, probably, I'm not going to speculate, but could be in a better mental place because he's just like, okay, once I'm healthy, I'm ready to rock and roll. I can't imagine what Ricky's kind of been going through where he's been healthy. The results aren't there. And now he's asking himself, or potentially asking himself, some of the same questions that Kyle's presenting. I think it's a much more difficult, it's almost like a meat grinder for him.
Yeah, you can't really quantify it too, because there's the personal expectation that's always on the go. And all you guys play golf, and you know what it's like when things are just going your way and putts rim in and balls bounce in the right direction. And then you get 1 or 2 good breaks, and the game sort of comes easily. But by the same token, it turns on its head for these guys as well. And those putts that would lip in and the bounces out of the divot you would get, those start sticking. And then when you have to deal with that, and a game that's marginally flawed, and then you're competing, to Kyle's point, against these large and deep fields. I mean, Brooks, I still giggle at, when he was at the PGA a few years ago and he broke the 140-person field down to about 10 guys he had to beat. Right? Yeah. And I was like, well, that's a pretty cool mindset to go about it. But week in, week out on the PGA Tour, it's not that. If you look at the winners list, like Landry at this place, for argument's sake, last year, anyone can capture lightning in the bottle at any time. Then if you're battling your golf swing, if your self-confidence is a little low, even if you're Brooks, or Ricky. If you're not making putts, I mean, that's the icing on top of the cake, because a putter can rectify all manner of ills if you can just kind of keep rounds alive. And then you got a bunch, have 20, 30, 40 guys who are playing great, who are fearless at the time. It's hard to crack the nod, because to Coach's point, 65 guys make the cut now. It's not 70 anymore, and that's a lot. That difference, all right?
It makes a big difference.
So
Yes.
you get on the wrong side of a few bounces and one or two lipped out putts. All of a sudden, you are shooting even par, and that's just not good enough to see weekends on the PGA Tour right now. So for me, I pine for these guys, because I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is to get some traction. Because gaining traction on the driving range, working on it, is one thing. But then taking that to the golf course, getting yourself a solid start Thursday morning, and then building on that thing, it's hard if you're like, oh my goodness, when am I going to hit this wide ball off the tee again? Because even these guys struggle with those sorts of demons like the rest of us do. So you can't really pin it on one thing. And yes, Ricky does have to prove himself, but it's really a difficult road to hoe for anyone at any level of the game.
That was the best when Brooks was like, 70 of these guys they're dweebs, they got no chance, and these 20, they're no good, they can't hit it far enough. I don't think that was an exact quote, but something like that. I love it. Coach, what do you got?
Yeah, well, I was going to piggyback off him, because I think why Brooks gets so criticized is because, and I would love to hear Mark's take on this. I don't know that he has the respect from the other players on the tour in this manner. We want our guys to show up every single week, and golf matter to them. And he made it clear, and then he made the excuse, well, when I said that I don't practice, I had a bad knee for a year. But his attitude didn't tell us that he takes these things seriously. And one of the records that we talk about so much with Tiger is the amount of wins that he has. So even though Tiger ramps up for the majors, wins still matter to him, And the fact that Brooks can't even honestly look any of us in the eye and say, you know what, the American Express Championship, I'm fired up. I'm ready to tee it up. I'm ready to go. And that's a problem if you want to be one of the top athletes and golfers in the world, especially when you're at Nike with all these other top guys.
I think Brooks's problem is he takes himself seriously, but he doesn't take being a pro that seriously. And look, like I'm criticizing a 4-time major winner. Like it's.
But how many other wins though, Kyle? That's our point.
I just think like the way that people view him, the way that people view you is how seriously do you take yourself? Like that's why people like DJ, right? That's why people like Rory. They take being a pro seriously, but they don't really take themselves too seriously. And Brooks is just the opposite. It's inverted, and it just creates friction, I think, for people that are viewing him.
Yeah, I just want to quickly compare the majors to the regular tour events, because I will contend, and I'll probably take a bunch of heat for this, but going back in the day, Jack Nicklaus would say that it was easier to win major championships than it was regular tour events, because the major championships, each one of the four, they ask you a specific set of questions. And you've essentially got to have the complete gamut of weapons. You can't fake your way through that sort of stuff. So if you're on high confidence, you're strong enough to gouge the ball out of rough, you can drive it long, you can make timiest putts, and then you can have that sort of stick-to-itiveness, attrition thing about you, and you just hang around and you survive. That's a mindset. Nicklaus had it, Koepka had it for a while, Tiger certainly had it. All the multiple major champs, they did. If Phil had it more, he probably would have had more. If Rory had that sort of hang in there, war of attrition thing a little bit more, he may have had more, and I still believe he will. And then when you get to a regular PGA Tour event, when they're shooting 20 under par or whatever the case might be, any guy who's on the tour, if he captures that stuff in the bottle the 1 week and the putter gets hot and there's not too much rough, so you can advance balls to greens and the whole locations aren't as punitive and this sort of thing, it's I don't say it widens the skill set, but the misses just aren't magnified as much, if that makes any sense to you. So for Brooks, who plays that major championship kind of a game, I can see why I can sit there in a presser and go, these guys won't handle the length of the place. These guys can't do it. I'm mentally tougher than them. I know this. I've beaten them. And so he's got this, not bravado, but the self-confidence about him. But when you go and play in Mayakoba, it's a free-for-all. And if you're not making putts, you're not going to win. I'm sorry. It's just how it goes.
Yeah, I think that I think real quick, Rick, I think I completely agree. I think that's a great point. I think I'm more talking about like just generally taking himself too serious. I'm not talking about the difference between majors and regular events. I'm just talking about, saying I don't care about anything and then posing in $1,500 t-shirts or whatever. It's like, what are you doing? Like that, you definitely care about a lot of stuff. And so you might as well just talk about it. I don't know.
I do think the next class, to kind of Mark's point about some of these free-for-alls, they're being bred on the Corn Ferry Tour to go low every week. These Monday qualifiers are, you got to shoot something scorching to get in, and they're ready to just put their foot on the gas and never let up. And one of those guys this week, Coach, it might be John Augenstein. He's making his pro debut. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he was neck and neck for Low-Am at the Masters with Andy Ogletree, finished second in terms of amateurs at that event. But here he is, a kid from Vanderbilt looking to make some noise this week in the California desert.
Yeah, Mark just said he didn't want to use the word bravado when talking about Brooks. I will use that word when talking about John Augustine, because this dude has confidence for days. And anytime you're the runner-up at the USAM, you've got game. And then anytime you make the cut at the Masters, when you're still an amateur, which I think is, everybody says, well, there's no pressure, they're just amateurs. I think the reverse. I think you show up and you're playing with all these big names, and all of a sudden you're making the cut, and all the big names that don't. To me, that gives you the mindset that no matter where I go and play, if I can make the cut at the Masters, I can play with these dudes. And so he's coming in this week. It's his first start as a pro. I don't think you can ask for a better situation than no fans, no amateurs for him to be distracted by, and an arrogance that he believes that he's going to win every time he walks out, posting pictures like we're up on social media. And I just think he's a guy that people need to keep their eye on, much like we did with the big three last year. I think this could be a year that John Augustine makes his mark and earns his PGA Tour card.
Yeah, I would certainly pay attention to John Augustine. The first time I watched him play was a couple seasons ago at the Palmer Cup, and he turned my head. He hits the ball hard, he hits it high. He's got a lot of swagger about him. I mean, he's pretty high on John Augustine. But to that Masters thing, I was so impressed by the way he played through 2 rounds. I mean, let's not forget, I think he got up to like 6 or 7 under par, and he was just a couple off the lead. In fact, maybe early Friday morning, he might have been tied for the lead. And then on the weekend, when they start cashing checks on the PGA Tour, he backed up a little bit, and Andy Ogletree sucked him in and took the low amateur crown. So he's a notoriously fast starter. You've seen that he's had leads in USAMs and then spilled them up. One of them against Ogletree. So he's got all the tools. I got to tell you this, and he's very confident. But on the weekend is when you make money on the tour. So I'm keen to see now at this event, when it's going to be a bit of a show and there's going to be a birdie fest, how he deals with a place like the Stadium course, which the misses are punitive over there on the weekend. And I'm expecting him to make the cut. And then when they start saying, okay, you got to shoot 67 around a place where one bad ball and you're in rocks and it's a disaster, I'm keen to see how that pans out.
He opened with a 3 under 69 at Augusta National. So, Mark, you're absolutely right. He got off to a bit of a hot start there. KP, put a bow on this storyline for us. I like Coach's take about, these guys, and we saw this kind of with guys coming out of college last year. Now we're seeing it making their pro debuts, not having to deal with the extra impact that might be fans and ambient noise and somebody says something to them and all that stuff. And I haven't been able to quantify who that helps, who it hurts. Rory has been vocal about not getting enough energy, but someone like a John Augenstein might be in comfy waters.
Yeah, it might reduce his nerves a little bit. By the way, he actually was not playing for any money on the weekend at the Masters.
We're aware of this, but I'm saying he will be now.
Yes, he will be now. I think the point that Coach makes about, we holler about strokes gained and swings and all these different things. And it's like, man, how much of the formula for success on the PGA Tour is just being confident in who you are and what you're doing. And, I think we make fun of somebody like a Patrick Reed for that at times when he talks about being a top 5 guy or whatever, but just having played sports growing up, like the guys that succeeded were the ones that thought they were awesome. And, that doesn't translate that great to like interacting with other people at times, as Mark was kind of alluding to, but I think it's a hidden skill that we don't talk often enough about it. And I think Augenstein has it. And, I don't know if he'll get his card in however many starts he'll 8 starts, you get sponsor exemptions, but I think he's gonna have a lot of success on Korn Ferry or wherever he ends up.
Love it. That is a name I'm going to favorite on the leaderboard and keep an eye on all week long. But gentlemen, we've got to get to our super contest. We've got to give our one and done leans, and we're going to do that after these words from our partners. And we're back. Let's hop into our super contest. For those of you who are just tuning in, this is where we take $100. We go over to William Hill Sportsbook. We make a series of bets, in Kyle's case, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever it takes. And we keep track of all of it throughout the year. Now, I've been taking a high risk, high reward approach, picking a lot of outright winners. I might need to change that because I'm the only one of us losing money over the first couple of weeks that we've done this. Everybody else is in the black, and our best bets are returning 131% ROI. We are 6 for 8, which is pretty beautiful. So let's start with this. KP, we're going to pull up your betting card first. I'm going to ask you to talk me through the highlights here. Just the highlights. I don't think we have enough time.
Do we have time? Do we have time for that?
We've got time to go through the highlights. And what we've done is we've designated one of these to be our best bet. So Kyle, for you, your best bet is Sam Burns to finish in the top 20, and Burns is catching a lot of steam this week. So talk me through that one.
Yeah, Burns top 20. He hasn't played since Mayakoba, which concerns me a little bit. But if you look at the last 3 months of the guys in this field, he's been the best from tee to green. So better than Scheffler, better than definitely Koepka, Fowler, anybody. Again, like I had to balance that against kind of the rust of him not having played since whatever that was, the end of November. But I think that given the way he drives it and how disproportionately this course rewards length, I don't know. I really like him for a top 20 this week.
You've got a couple other top 20 bets here. Adam Schenk, Cameron Champ, Andrew Landry, Abraham Mance. You actually have a lot of top 20 bets here. This is a strategy that I like as well. And there's a name that you have here, Kramer Hickok, also a name that's going to make my list. And I think I like what you've done here with your top 10s and your top 20s.
Yeah, Hickok help me out here. I think he finished T25 last week at Sony.
I think he was better than that. I think he was T19,
okay.
And I'll give you the spoiler. He was 9th in strokes gained tee to green.
So yeah, he hit the ball great last week. Which wasn't he Jordan Spieth's roommate for a while? I'm pretty sure they roomed. Is that right, Mark?
Mark's nodding.
I wish we could get a bet on who will win next. Who will win first, Kramer Hickok or Jordan Spieth?
Wow,
that's a shame.
Abandoning ship finally, Rick. Is he abandoning SS?
Oh no. I'll be the last one on the SS Spieth. But yeah, I love the way you hit the ball last week, and I think at what is it, plus 800? Yeah, plus 800, top 20. I think that's decent number.
I love that. And then the only outright that you have is Scotty Scheffler at 16-1. So I don't know if I'm going to spoil your pick to win later, but it seems like Scheffler's your guy.
Yeah, I like him. He finished 3rd here last year. I mean, you guys know how I feel about Scheffler. I think he's super underrated just because he hadn't won. I think his tee to green game is legit, like top 15 in the world, legit. And I'm excited to see if he can do 2 better than he did last year.
There you go. Okay, we're going to queue up my betting card next while producer Jacob does that. Remember, so we will release our expert pick. So that's your sleeper, your top 10, and your pick to win, which we just heard Kyle's pick to win. That comes out via social media. So make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram to make sure you get that cheat sheet in your hand so you can see our picks for the week. And we'll go over to my betting card. And I've opted to remove a little bit of the variance. And I've got 3 head-to-head matchups, which is something I have not done through the first 2 weeks. So I'm relying a bit on head-to-heads. And my best bet is Paul Casey over Cameron Champ. And the thing that I've been talking a lot about, Mark, and this is something I want to pick your brain about, is these guys coming off a long layoff. I just kind of assume and reset everybody back to their baseline, back to their long-term form. These guys have been able to get enough practice time in. I expect Paul Casey to come out and be the Paul Casey that we know and love. Hit his irons well, hit his driver well, and try to be a zero putter.
Well, Paul Casey's the kind of guy who's going to play well at any place you take him to, just by the way he strikes it. And just the golf swing to me is easily repeatable. And it's the kind of swing that's going to rest well because there's not a whole lot of stuff going on. So during off time, he's played in similar sort of conditions out there in Phoenix where he lives. Not sure if he was back home in the United Kingdom for a while, but given COVID, I don't think he might have been able to travel over there. So practicing in similar conditions. This week, as we mentioned on a previous podcast, it's like playing golf in a dome. So it's as similar to practice as you ever going to see. And it's not like the course is going to change personality that much between the morning and the afternoon. The only difference you start to see at this place is the changes in temperature. So the ball just flies farther in the afternoon. But that's no real big deal for these guys to take into account and to make accommodations for. So this is the kind of place for a place like a Molinari or a Casey or someone who hasn't played a bunch to sort of hit the ground running, because no real rough is there, well, except for on the stadium course where there's rocks and penalty areas and such. But on the Nicholas course, if you miss fairways, it's either a fairway bank or a dormant Bermuda. So you can get after it. If you're hitting the ball solidly and you're making some putts, I mean, even though you hadn't played for a while, you can go ahead and get a bit busy.
I'm glad you mentioned Molinari. He also made my betting card. I'm willing to forgive and forget his 2020 season. And Coach, I want to bring you in on this because I took a little bit of a different strategy and I want to get your thoughts on it. I've got 3 head-to-head matchups. I've got 2 top 20s, and then I've just sprinkled a little bit on my outrights. I'm trying to play a little catch-up. I saw what you did with your 3 for 3 on head-to-head matchups last week.
Yeah, whenever I tell my followers and fans that bet with the picks that I give out, I say if you really want to make money, then you do tournament matchups because everything else is too volatile. Prop bets, you can be sitting pretty for 3 rounds, and you pick a top 20, and like Kyle or you guys could be great, but then they have a bad Sunday and you fall out. So I'm not a big fan of betting props. I love tournament matchups, and I think in a long season like competition that we're doing, I think the person that's going to be the most successful is the one that's going to do the most tournament matchups because that's just the easiest one to win of all the different bets that you can make.
Once I win one of these 500-1 long shots, I'm just going to coast. I'm just going to coast the rest of the year. Mark, let's bring up Mark's betting card here. He has one of my favorite things, which is a group matchup. He went with Lanto Griffin over Ricky Fowler, Siwoo Kim, Paul Casey, Sam Burns, and Taylor Gooch, and he's got one of his patented nationality bets, Mark, for his best bet. Who do you got?
Yeah, I do. I'll be honest with you. I borrowed a leaf out of Coach's book when I saw the card come through, and he had picked Sepp Straka, and I was like, this makes a lot of sense. And I had actually seen Sepp's play late December over in Shoal Creek in Birmingham. And I caught up with him a little bit, and he was just hitting the ball beautifully. He seemed really relaxed, seemed confident and sort of comfortable with who he was on the PGA Tour now. He wasn't a guy who's struggling to keep a card anymore. He was Sepp Straka. I've been in contention some. I know my game. I know how I feel under pressure. And man, he didn't miss a yardage when I was watching him play. He was right behind us. So top Euro at plus 600, I think that's a pretty comfortable bet there. And 20 to win 120. The last few bets, I've just bet $20 to go 5 times. So I like Sepp this week. You know me, I'm always in for playoffs, and this event has attention to finishing in the playoff. And I missed that by 1 last week, so I've got to go there. And then Lanto in that group. I don't care who's in that group. The way the guy's been playing, someone's got to give him some love. Mm-hmm. And at plus 550, I was like, this is a no-brainer. Now, hopefully it works out, but I think Lanto Griffin in that group at those odds is honestly a really stout number.
Yeah, and you round this out with an Abe Answer and Tony Finau top 20. Mark, we could have removed the names from this, and I could have bet this was yours because you stay on brand, and I love it. You've got a nationality, you've got an event ending in a playoff, and you've got a group winner. This is definitely your card.
The reason being is I don't know how to navigate this William Hill website as good as you guys. I said, find these other cool bets. I mean, if I've come up with something, you're the guy who has to try and find it for me. So I just go there sort of where I know. I think as the season progresses, I'll get a bit better.
Mark's betting card is just a Mad Lib. He just fills in different names every week.
While we pull up Coach's card here, I did want to circle back because, Kyle, you actually have an Abu Dhabi bet on here. You have a Justin Thomas 3-ball over Matthew Fitzpatrick and Martin Keimer, which to me looks very close to it's minus 105. It's right in front of my face. That seems pretty reasonable for the number 3 player in the world.
Yeah, I mean, JT almost won Hawaii. He's just way better than Martin Keimer and Matthew Fitzpatrick.
Better get past Matthew Fitzpatrick in the desert. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I almost went JT. There was a JT Rory to win. It was like plus 250, I think, which is terrible odds, but they're just they're by far like the best guys in the field. So I don't know. I think the lingering, just everything that's gone on with JT over the last couple of weeks, I think that has to factor in, like whether he's still thinking about stuff. I don't know. So I don't know. I feel pretty good. I didn't feel great about any of the American Express stuff, so I just went to Abu Dhabi and started throwing stuff around over there.
I was going to say they all feel good on Tuesday afternoon. I'm positive about all of these right now.
Yeah.
If you are looking for golf this week, there is no shortage. We mentioned Abu Dhabi, so we're going to get a little, all hours of the day. The ladies have the Tournament of Champions, so plenty of golf action. Let's pull up Coach's betting card here. And Coach, I see 3 nationality bets. I see a matchup, and I see a double chance. We are rocking and rolling over here.
Well, it's funny because sometimes when I look at a betting card and I struggle to find anything I like. Here's right here. Look, I have like 10 matchup bets that I loved. And then I love William Hill because they give you so many different ways to bet, which a lot of other sports books, to be brutally honest, just do not. And when I looked at some of these numbers, and then when you click on that, if people are going to William Hill, you click on the more bets, and it brings up how many guys you have to beat. Oh, my goodness. I mean, you only have to beat 5 other dudes if you're Matt Jones, who played great last weekend at the Century. Adam Hadwin, who the last 3 times that he has played here has not finished outside of the top 6, if I'm right, as top Canadian. And the only reason he didn't do it last year because he didn't play because I think he was having a baby. So some of these just jumped off the page at me. And then clearly I'm validated by Mark with the Sepp Straka pick, the top European player. And then I'm really bullish this week on Sungjae Im. I think Patrick Reed's going to be off. Tony Finau, I just don't believe in him right now. And I always want to throw in a double chance to win just because I think it's fun. And I think for bragging rights on the show, if one of us picks a winner, then you can brag for the entire next week. So that one is just about my ego at the bottom. But I feel very good about all the rest.
I don't know if our mics were hot when we were talking about this, but our friends over at William Hill were a bit slow when John Rahm withdrew from this event. And when you have a betting favorite who was like 7.5 to 1 removed from the field, there was Patrick Cantlay, Coach, was still hanging out there at a good number, and Patrick Reed was still hanging out there at a really good number. So if you were paying attention on, what would that have been, Monday morning, you might have got some really good numbers on these guys too.
That's right. And that's the thing is you have to pay attention. And I do a show for CBS and Sportsline called The Early Edge, and it's so important. Oh, you may have seen it on my background. It's so important, especially when you're betting on anything, but especially golf, to get the right number, because we tell people all the time it's about money management, but also I never like to put real cash on winners because it's so hard to do. But as you just alluded to, if you can get in a situation where there's a time period that they haven't adjusted the odds, my goodness, you can get some really good odds on guys that obviously are going to dip lower by tomorrow.
All right, let's talk one and done. And I'm pulling up the spreadsheet here to make sure we're all in line. We're not going to have to take a timeout. I'm going to keep everybody in check this week, so we're going to be good. I'm pulling it up here. And just to refresh you on the standings, Mr. Immelman, $4.1 million. Don't you wish you could just cash that out right now, Mark? Just take the 4.1.
That'd be sweet. You guys would never see me on this show again.
That's what it's going to cost to get rid of Mark Immelman. $4.1 million.
That's it.
That's what I would sell my Twitter account for.
There you go. Greg is 3.4. He's in second. I'm in third, 2.4. KP, 2.1. We'll start with you in a second. Producer Jacob, 2.1 as well. And Coach, who started with $1 million 2 weeks ago, has already wiggled his way up to 1.4 million. So here are our leans for this week. And Kyle, I'm going to start with you. And just for refresher's sake, the last couple of weeks you took Kevin Kisner, who got you 34,000, and Stuart Sink. You were in a timeout. You got $0 for the Tournament of Champions, and you burned Stuart Sink.
Did Stuart Sink make any money at the Tournament of Champions? I know everybody makes money, but did he?
Yeah, he played 72 holes. He got something. I don't know what it was.
I hate this. I tried to pick Scotty Scheffler, then I realized I'd already picked him.
Yeah.
I might end up going either. I might go with one. I really like Coach's bet of 2-for-1 to win the Patricks, the Cantlay Reed. By the way, they should just put them. They should put them together for the Ryder Cup. I think that'd be great. Xander and Cantlay, no energy. Reed and Cantlay. Reed would provide all the energy, and they're kind of both killers.
So then, who do you put Xander with?
Somebody like
Tony
Finau.
I think Xander would be a good.
Oh,
combo.
interesting.
I like that. Or Webb.
Put Xander with anyone, man.
Yeah.
I watched that clip again where Rory and Reed dropped birdies on each other in that Ryder Cup, and I just replayed it 900 times. It was like
I watched
it.
I watch it once a month. So I'll probably end up going with one of the Patricks, either Cantlay or Reed.
One of the Patricks, and you have both of them at your disposal, so you are good there. I also ran into a similar situation where I wanted to use one of the Patricks, Cantlay specifically, because first of all, he's the favorite. His best spot is Shriners, and that's not in our one and done, right? I mean, it's already passed.
I used him last year in Shriners.
Where did I use him then?
I used him in Shriners for a runner-up. There were a few guys who used him. Hold on, I can tell you this.
Yeah, I used him too. Oh, you used him too. Yeah, we got 190,000 for it. So that was the good place to use him.
Cal picked a decky at Shriners and got him $0.
Classic. So for this week, and then I also kind of wanted Answer, and I've already used him as well. So I think, and Coach mentioned him earlier, Sungjae might be the play this week. He's one of the shortest guys. I know that he lost 3 strokes on approach last week. That was his worst in like 10 starts. I think he figures it out. And I think I might take Sungjae here and see what happens. Now, Coach, we're gonna go over your one and done here. So just to recap, so you joined us at the new year. We gave you $1 million to start with, $1 million bonus. You picked Xander for 280, and you picked Russell Henley at the Sony. That got you 153,000. So you've already made up some ground here in the last couple of weeks. Where are you headed for the American Express?
When I looked at, I always like to go back 4 years. That's kind of, I put in a lot of time, just like Kyle and Mark when I'm preparing for the show. And I looked at the last 4, and there were several names that continued to pop up. And he's on my list. He's on Mark's list. And I think Sepp Straka is going to have a really good week. And you also have to think about, because several of the names that we've already discussed, I said, well, I want to use them here. I want to use them there. I want to use them there. And I don't know that I'm ever going to have another week where I'm going to, you know what? I really wish I had Sepp Straka available to use today. This is a place that he plays well. And so I'm hoping that he has, I don't think he's going to win, but I'm hoping that I can continue my average of $200,000 every single week. And I think I will catch up quickly if I can do that.
All right, we've got a Sepp Straka sighting in the one and done. And Champ, I'm coming to you. 4.1 million. You've got a $700,000 lead. You have picked recently Joaquin Niemann. That was a good one. Got you 587,000 at the Sony. You took one of the Patricks, the Reed version of him, at the Century Tournament of Champions for 75,000. And here we are at the American Express.
Hey, who's Greg picking? I just want to stay ahead of him. I might just go with who Greg's going with.
You're just going to wait for Greg to text, and then you're going to say, yeah, I'll take that guy too.
The truth of it is, I made a big mistake last year in not going with Scotty Scheffler ever. And looking back on the season for a guy who's tremendously rounded, who's played at this golf course well, he really is enterprising to me right now. And I would say I'm leaning that way, but I'm unconvinced because something inside of me says 2 extra days at this venue where the practice facilities are magnificent. Abraham Ancer, who's played well here before, who I was sort of aiming to use this week anyway. I'm still not completely convinced. So I'm between Scheffler and Abe right now.
I was going to say you're the only guy left with Abraham Ancer, but that's not even remotely true. So disregard that statement. I think Greg's the only one who's used him. Oh no, and I've used him. So that would certainly be interesting, especially coming off of a week that he missed a cut. Those are those 2 extra days that you're alluding to, Mark. And obviously good vibes here. He finished runner-up to Andrew Landry in last year's edition.
And sorry, I was going to say too, I mean, if you watch the guy around the green with a wedge, I think he rivals Jordan Spieth for just pure silk and sizzle he puts on the golf ball. I mean, he's got so much touch, so much charisma around the greens and that. And Kyle referenced the driver around these golf courses. To me, it's really a second shot place. And if you miss, you're going to have yourself some pretty wicked bunker shots and sort of huge elevation changes and the like. So if you are saucy with a lob wedge, you can get busy around this place. And that's what Abraham Ancer does really well.
There you go. Gentlemen, the American Express. Anything else before we call this an episode? Who's got something? Somebody? Anybody?
We're good.
All right. I tried. That'll do it for this episode of The First Cut. Let me thank Mark Immelman, who you can find on Twitter at Mark_Immelman. Let me thank the coach, who you can find at The Coach Rules. Let me thank Kyle Porter. You can find at Kyle Porter CBS. That is his Twitter handle. You should follow him. Coach just followed him, so we've got a nice little thing going here. We're all team. And you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. Catch you next time.